Greetings to each and every one of you. I hope today finds you well. I would just like to mention the fact that you have the opportunity to donate through Patreon if you would like. If you can appreciate these and you listen to them on a regular basis and you have the heart to be able to donate maybe $1 an episode, $3, $4 a month with 4 episodes coming out. We attempt to launch one every Sunday morning, and that would be very much appreciated. If not, that's very much understood, and I encourage you to keep listening. Please subscribe. Share with other people this podcast. So if you're getting something out of it, they may possibly get something out of it. Give it a thumbs up. You could hit up the comment sections to let me know what you appreciate, and we can see how we can go forward in more episodes to be able to accommodate the people that are listening. To donate, simple enough, just hit the description. It will take you into a Patreon account. It is Patreon, Catch It, A New Perception. That is all one word. And enjoy the podcast. Enjoy each episode. Good day to you, and welcome back to the podcast, Catch It, A New Perception. The greatest podcast you'll ever hear. My name is Ketuk. I was thinking about how balance in our lives will serve us as well as anything. And the lack of balance brings in everything into my life that is undesirable, which makes things very difficult. I talk about being able to work in and the work that we do, and I think about how here in the second season I wanted to start bringing guests in. And I wanted to bring in a couple different types of guests, and that's not happening yet. It may happen later in season 2. It may not happen until season 3. We'll see how things go. Thought about bringing in some people with some credentials of, maybe a doctor, someone with a master's, different people who help people change the way that they think so that they can feel different. Maybe help people take some different actions so they can think different. And assist people in being able to change their perception. And another group of people I thought about bringing in, some of them are no longer with us. They've returned to the spirit world. And some of them do not live around me, so it may not be as easy to do. And they have to do with people who have helped me work in. And in talking about balance, there's a certain way that we reach out. I don't reach outside of myself for that instant gratification today. That does not serve me well. What I reach out for is to help people, to show up, to volunteer, whatever terminology you want to use, to be helpful to others. That's a good way to reach out. And when I work in, it has to do with getting to know my higher self, working on my quote-unquote spirituality, working on my kindness, doing the work with my heart or my soul or my spirit, if you will, not necessarily into my head. When I sit and bounce things around in my head, it doesn't do me any good. So some of the ways that I have learned to work in have to do with meditation and yoga. And some of the people that I thought about bringing in on as guests are the people who assisted me with some of those things. There is a man who invited me into his yoga studio, and he had an interesting past. Some people might say checkered. Some people may have some different terminology for it. He had sacrificed his freedom because of some of the actions that he had taken for a period of time, over a decade, I believe. And when he had sacrificed his freedom, he was gifted something called yoga. And he learned to be free in a different way. And when he came out, he decided to practice that same technique. And he got to know it differently. He got to know himself differently, and he continued to go in to do this work. He invited me into his yoga studio. Him and his partner had this yoga studio at the time, and I would take classes with them. And I wasn't doing a daily practice of yoga yet. I would just go into the studio every week and participate with them. I thought he would be a good guest because he's done so much work going in to change his perception, to change the way he looks at the world, to change how he looks at himself. And so much of that had been processed through the yoga practice. A daily practice, a regular practice of giving to others through teaching. The gift that we're given sometimes in showing how to go in is priceless. Now, he no longer lives in this area, so I don't know that it's advantageous right now to be able to get him as a guest on this program. Another one that I think about that taught me a little bit about how to go in is the man that taught me TM, Transcendental Meditation. He learned from Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, and then he taught for over 50 years Transcendental Meditation. And the thing about Joseph teaching Transcendental Meditation, he had taught maybe thousands of people. I have no idea how often he taught or how many people. I saw it for a period of time in my life, how many people would come into his home and how often he would teach and how he would teach and the things that he did. What he had gifted me was the ability to be able to go in, sit quietly, go into my heart, get out of my mind, not go in thinking, go in quiet without the thinking. And it was a beautiful process he taught me. And the gift that you're given through yoga, through meditation, is a very individual gift. When you're able to receive these are things that you will take action towards in the future or you will not. And if you take action towards these and continue to do them in your life on a daily basis, doing transcendental meditation twice a day, every day, doing yoga practice at home every day, there is something inside of you that will change differently than anyone else that does those same practices. It's your own uniqueness. It's your own ability to be able to share, to love, to be kind to yourself. Then you take action towards treating other people in that same fashion. I believe it continues to look different. So Joseph is another one that would have been very nice to have on this podcast because he taught so many people so many things, and transcendental meditation was just one of them. What he taught so many of us was how to go in, how to be peaceful and sit quietly, how to be kind and gentle as a man with masculinity and being able to just exist, show love and kindness. I didn't understand that those could be one and the same. Sometimes I thought that the kindness and love was a feminine energy. And it may be where he learned it, maybe how he learned it was through a woman in his life or through the women in his life. I don't know. I know that I have learned it from men and women both, and I saw it in him. And since he returned to the spirit world, he will not be with us as a guest. And then I think about someone else. His name was Tommy. And Tommy grew up in Mississippi as a sharecropper. He worked the same cotton fields that his family before him worked, generations before him. And at the end of the week, him and his family were paid in peanuts and popcorn. That was their payment for working the cotton fields at that time as sharecroppers. And he left that area as he became an adult. And he made his way to the upper Midwest. And he got a good job. And he retired from a good job with good retirement. And by the time I met him, he always walked slowly. He always walked with a smile. He was always willing to greet you with a handshake. He always would stand up to shake your hand and look you eye to eye with a smile. From where he came from to where he was before he returned to the spirit world, he was not bitter. He was not angry. He did not think he was cheated in life. He did not speak of being mistreated. He spoke of being grateful. He spoke of being generous, and he was generous. He showed us how to be kind and loving. Would have been nice to have him on this podcast. He returned to the spirit world recently, earlier this year. So he will not be able to be a guest on this podcast. I don't know who will be, and I don't know when it will happen. I look forward to finding people who carry the energy, that want to share that energy, in helping you to see the world different, helping you to see yourself different, helping you to see others differently than you ever have, continuing to evolve, if you will, spiritually. So through this change that we're going to do has to do with balance. And I could speak of balance in many different ways on every podcast, every episode of this podcast I ever do, probably. And one of them I think of today: how do we balance egotism and confidence? I've spoke about it a little bit in the past. To be able to be confident, to be able to be sure of what we're doing, that we walk in a good way. That each one of us, when we think of ourselves, know that we're good, that we do good. We do the best we can. And not come across acting as if we're better than someone else. That we have something they don't have. I remember speaking of one of these elders, and I said it never bothered me when he spoke about how great he was, how wonderful he was. He would speak about how wonderful he was and how great he was after he told everyone in the room how beautiful they were, how wonderful they are, how great it is how they do this, how great you are when you do this, whatever this may be at that moment. It would be individual, and he would speak of your greatness. So when he spoke of his own greatness, he would basically be implying, we are equal. What confidence in a 90-year-old man. What grace in a 90-year-old man. To see that and to be around it and realize that we can all obtain that balance. Not have to act like we're something special in the sense that we're better than someone. And know that we're something special because we're equal to everyone. I think that it takes some work to be able to find that balance in our lives. I think sometimes some of us may need to reconcile the past. We may need to be able to dream about the future. And the only way that the future, those dreams can ever come true, is by having a dream. That doesn't mean living in the future and only dreaming about it. Having hope that it can be different. Walking towards that in a good way. Taking the action we need to allow that dream to come true. For some of us, it may be what appears to be rather simple when it comes to a dream. And some of us will dream so big, we don't believe it will ever come true. And we take the action towards it. And we actually accomplish more than what we ever dreamed we could do. So when we take action towards something, doesn't mean that we pretend. We don't act as if. We take action towards it. That's how we act our way into a new way of thinking. So the whole time that we're going to work on this, there's many different avenues that we will take. We will not be defeated by the negative mantras that once fed us. We will stop telling ourselves those. When we begin to repeat the things that kept us down, it's time to be able to say, I'm not going to do this anymore. Even if we say it out loud and the mantra is silent and no one else can hear it, we can say, I'm not going to say this anymore. And flip that mantra 100% from what it is to the opposite. Begin to repeat that to yourself consciously so it layers into your subconscious. And realize that the way that we walk today, in this new year, the way that we walk today is different than we've ever walked before. What is the new year? Maybe it's just today. Maybe the new year starts today. Maybe it was with the spring equinox. It's a new year. Let's look at it differently. Things are going to begin to awaken. The plants, the trees, they'll get these buds on them. They'll start to regrow. They weren't dead. They wouldn't be able to regrow. They were sleeping over the winter. Is that what makes it a new year? Or do we follow the Gregorian calendar and it was a new year January 1st and we want to believe that we're still in it? That this is still a new year? That we can change our way of thinking right now for the rest of the year. And once we change it for the rest of this year, we can continue next year. We just have to start right now, today, as a new year. Is every season a new year? When the summer solstice hits, is it a new year? Is it a new season? In the fall equinox, is it a new year again? Do we have 4 new years in 12 months? I don't know how you see it. I don't know what your perceptions are. You can see it however you want to. That's the whole point of doing this podcast in different episodes, is helping you to realize that you think different than you did when you heard the first one. You're thinking differently than you did when you heard the first episode of this season. You're thinking differently than you did yesterday. When one of your parents makes an approach to you and says something, you react differently. Or you no longer react. Or when one of your kids say something to you, you react differently. Or you no longer react. You just listen. You sit quietly. Are you capable of just listening? When someone else says something, do you have to interrupt them? Do you think you know better? If you're continuing to interrupt people as they speak, is there a lot of egotism in that? Are you speaking down to them when you do that? Do you say, oh, it's just the way I am? So you use it for an excuse to continue to be sick in that way, when you could be well and listen to them, look them in the eye and smile. And then when they're done speaking, there's a pause because you were actively listening, and you may or may not comment. You may just listen. There are many actions we can take to change the way we think. Listening is one of those actions. To be able to listen means that we can change everything in our lives when we're used to over-speaking. Are we willing to share differently than we ever have? Give someone our opinion without fear that they will reject us. When we haven't given our opinion, when we see that it could have helped them, because we were fearful of the rejection. Do we even see it as fear? Are we able to get more in touch with how we feel today than ever before? Has that changed? Or are we just as disconnected from how we feel emotionally as we've ever been? Are we able to feel more than just love and anger, hatred and resentment, joy? So I don't know if I'm in touch with all of my feelings today. I think that I'm in touch with more of them than I ever have been. And I want to believe I am forever a student. That I will learn more from this podcast than anyone else will. That I am able to see things different by doing this podcast than I ever did before I did it. Even not just with every season, with every episode. Am I able to see things different? Am I able to think different? So I have the ability to be able to be free to feel what's real? Or am I still masking things? Am I still hiding things by not being honest about how I feel? It's something that I need to continue to explore. I don't want to think that I have anything figured out. I want to believe that the balance will come in my life when I continue to learn, when I continue to seek, when I continue to listen, when I continue to share honestly. There are many times in my life where I have said something and thought, that didn't need to be said. Am I able to pause and able to not say it today so I don't have to walk away thinking to myself, I wish I wouldn't have said that. I wish I wouldn't have come across in that way. I wish it wouldn't have been taken like that. I didn't mean it like that. Maybe if I can pause, not just when agitated, at any aspect of my life, just listen and pause. I could bring a balance to my life I have never seen before. When I walk away from any conversation in my life in a given day and don't have a thought of, I wish that would have been different. Is it possible to be able to, throughout the day, without egotism, without thinking, oh, I'm right. Yeah, I had something to teach them. Well, I'm glad I said what I said. Without any of that egotism, am I able to walk away without regret? Knowing that I wasn't looking down on someone in any fashion, even thinking things like, well, I'm glad I got to teach those people that. Glad I got to teach her that. I'm glad he heard me say that. Because that's egotism. Can I walk away from every conversation thinking, wow, that was really cool. I'm thinking different than I was before that conversation. Thank you. Even if I don't say it to them, what if I just have that thought? Thank you. Thank you. I'm better off because of that conversation. Thank you. I can see differently because of that conversation. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Do I say that enough? Do I need to say it more? Thank you for listening to this podcast. Thank you for helping me become who I am becoming. Thank you for helping me understand I have much to learn. We come into this lifetime to teach and to learn. And so often, I realize what I am to teach is none of my business. I need to concern myself with what I can learn in this lifetime. Because if I think that I am here to teach, my egotism gets in the way. I don't want that. I don't need that. What I need is to be able to continue to share my experience, believe that people have the right to have hope in their life. Hope that they can do something different. Hope that they can think different. Hope that one day they will feel different. As I end this podcast, this episode of this podcast, I hope I learn everything I need to learn today. And if any of you people heard something today, or in any of these episodes, you heard something and you felt like you learned something, you saw something different, it doesn't have to do with me. It's not because I taught you something. It's because you opened your mind and you opened your heart. You allowed your spirit guides in. You allowed the Creator into your heart. And the Creator gifted you something new. That's how you learn today. Looking forward to next time. Live in harmony with and use the bounty of the land to bring kindness to the world.